Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Tom Grayson, and for most of my life, I believed that being a good son meant working hard, staying quiet, and putting family first, even when that family couldn't be bothered to look my way. I was 30 years old, a firefighter in Bozeman, Montana. Not some hero with a shiny medal or a glossy photo in a magazine. Just a man with burned scars under his shirt and calloused hands from pulling strangers out of burning homes. A man who'd seen more pain than he'd ever admit. But the deepest wounds? They didn't come from fire. They came from my own parents. I grew up on the poorer side of town, scraped knees, cold winters, cracked windows we couldn't afford to fix. My dad worked as a roofer until his knees gave out. My mom cleaned houses. And they loved my younger brother, Chase, like he walked on water. Me? I was the backup plan. The mistake they didn't know what to do with. I remember once when I was 12, I got a certificate from school for perfect attendance. I ran home, excited. My mom glanced at it, muttered something about how I should focus on real achievements, and went back to folding Chase's laundry. That's how it always was. Chase got praise, new shoes, a car on his 18th birthday. I got lectures. I got, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" I got silence. And yet, I stayed. I helped pay the bills when Dad's back gave out. I covered Chase's DUI fine when he forgot his wallet. I never asked for thanks. I just wanted to belong. Just once. That illusion shattered the day I ran into the burning middle school on 6th Avenue and carried out a girl no one else had reached. The building was collapsing. I didn't hesitate. Her name was Amber. She was maybe 16, trapped behind a flaming bookshelf in the library. I smashed through, picked her up, and ran until the smoke took me down. When I woke up in the hospital, my lungs were charred, my arms bandaged, and my brain foggy. But all I could think was, maybe this time, maybe now, my parents would look at me and finally see something worth loving. They didn't come. Not that first day. Not the next. Not after the doctor said I might have permanent burn damage. I called them from my hospital bed, breath shaky, hope still stupidly alive. "Mom. I'm in the hospital. I saved a girl from a fire. It was bad. They say I almost." Her response: "Why would you do something so stupid? You could have died. What were you thinking, Tom? No, I'm proud of you. No, we'll come visit." Just a sigh and a mumbled, "Your father's dealing with your brother's mess again." She hung up. That silence on the line. It screamed louder than any fire alarm ever could. And that was the moment, right then, that something inside me broke. A flame lit behind my ribs. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that clears the way for something new. I was done chasing their love. I was done being the forgotten son. But what I didn't know then was that the girl I saved would be the one to change everything. And the family who ignored me. They were about to beg for a seat at my table. They say pain makes you stronger. But that's not true. Pain just makes you quieter. I spent 10 days in that hospital bed, breathing through tubes, bandages wrapped around my arms, the scent of charred skin and antiseptic clinging to me. Nurses came and went. So did my colleagues from the station. Sarah, Jake, even rookie Daniel stopped by with coffee and awkward jokes. But my parents? Not once. Not a call. Not a card. Not a single damn message. And it wasn't like they didn't know. The news was everywhere. Firefighter pulls teen from blaze moments before collapse. My name was on the local news, in the Bozeman Chronicle, even on a TV loop in the hospital lobby. But not once did my mom or dad show up. Not even Chase. My little brother, the golden boy who once punched a cop and got a pat on the back from Dad for standing up for himself. The doctors told me the burns on my left arm would heal but leave permanent scarring. My lungs? Damaged, but I'd live, maybe with a little less breath than I used to. What hurt worse than any of it was the realization that I could have died in that building, and they would have just gone to brunch the next day. It was day 11 when the girl's family came. I was lying there, trying to keep down a bowl of lukewarm soup, when the nurse said, "You've got visitors." I assumed it was someone from the station again. Instead, the door opened, and a man in a tailored black coat walked in with his wife beside him, both looking like they'd stepped out of a Forbes article. And behind them, was her. The girl. Amber. She looked better, alive, alert, her hands clutching a small gift bag. Her mother's eyes brimmed with tears. Her father looked at me like I'd just handed him his entire world. "I'm Mark Ellison," the man said, voice calm but rich with emotion. "This is my wife, Eleanor. And that's our daughter, Amber. We came to thank you, Mr. Grayson." He stepped forward and shook my hand carefully. "You saved our daughter's life. We don't even know how to begin." "You don't need to," I said quickly, embarrassed. "I was just doing my job." Amber stepped closer. "You didn't have to go back for me," she said quietly. "The fire was already spreading. But you did. You came in anyway." She placed the gift bag on the tray table beside me. Inside was a small, leather journal. On the cover, in gold lettering, it said, "For the man who gave me a second chance." I didn't know what to say. Her father looked around the room, clearly uncomfortable. "Has your family been by?" he asked softly. I hesitated. Then I said the truth, "No." He said nothing at first. Just looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly, like he was doing math in his head. He nodded once. "We won't forget this," he said, reaching into his pocket and placing a card on the table. "When you're well enough, come by my office. It's the least I can do." They left after a few more words of gratitude. The room felt even quieter after they were gone. But something strange happened after that. The nurse who'd been giving me cold looks since day one suddenly started asking if I needed extra pillows. The hospital's chief administrator stopped by my room the next morning to personally thank me for my bravery. And yet, still silence from my own family. It was like they were allergic to pride when it came to me. I'll never forget the moment I finally called my mom again. It was the day before I was discharged. I just needed to know, one last time, if I meant anything to her. She answered on the third ring. "Tom," she said, her voice oddly flat. "Yeah, it's me. I'm getting out tomorrow." "Oh," she replied. "That's good. So, what now? You gonna be okay to work?" That was it. "No, how are you really?" "No, we've been worried sick. Just logistics." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Then she added, "By the way, Chase is in a bit of trouble. He took out a loan from one of those shady online places. We might need your help covering it. It's a lot." I stared at the wall. My jaw locked. "I was in a burning building, Mom," I said slowly. My skin melted off saving a child. "And you're calling to ask me to bail Chase out of another one of his messes?" She didn't answer at first. Then, "Don't be dramatic, Tom. He's your brother. We're family." I hung up. And this time, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared out the window as snow fell over Bozeman and made myself a promise. I would never beg for their love again. And if they thought they could walk all over me forever, they were about to find out who I really was. They say when one door closes, another opens. But sometimes, the second door opens to a hallway you never knew existed. I was discharged on a Thursday. I walked out of the hospital alone, the cold wind biting through my coat. No balloons. No welcome signs. No family to carry me home. Just my old truck, my bag of meds, and the business card from Mark Ellison, the father of the girl I'd saved. It had sat on my bedside table for nearly a week. White. Minimal. Expensive paper. Just a name, number, and address. No title. No logo. Nothing flashy. But I knew that name. Ellison. It rang through Montana like thunder in a canyon. They were real estate giants, quietly owning half the commercial land from Bozeman to Billings. The Ellisons weren't just rich. They were powerful. I didn't call immediately. I needed space. I needed air. I needed to remember who I was when I wasn't bleeding under bandages or being ignored by the people who were supposed to love me. I spent the first few days at Grandma June's, my dad's mom. She was the only person in my family who ever truly saw me. She'd send me little postcards when I was away at firefighter training. Call me, my strong boy, when no one else called me anything at all. You're walking like a man who's been through fire, she said softly, pouring me tea. But your eyes are still clear. I don't feel clear, I admitted. She smiled. That's because you're not done yet. It was Sunday evening, 3 days post-discharge, when I finally picked up the card again. I called. A woman with a smooth, polished voice answered, Ellison Group. Mr. Ellison's office. I introduced myself. There was a pause, then her tone shifted immediately. One moment, Mr. Grayson. Seconds later, Mark Ellison came on the line. Tom, he said warmly. I was hoping you'd call. He invited me to his office that Tuesday. And that's when everything started to change. The Ellison Group headquarters was in a sleek, glass-and-stone building downtown, miles from anything I'd ever walked into before. A receptionist greeted me like I was somebody important. She offered coffee. Led me down a corridor lined with abstract art and designer light fixtures. Mark Ellison was already standing when I entered his office, no tie, crisp shirt sleeves rolled, hands in his pockets. Like a man used to command, but not afraid of conversation. Tom, he said, shaking my hand firmly. Thank you for coming. I nodded, still unsure what this was. Please, he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. Sit. There's something I want to discuss with you. I sat, heart steady but cautious. He studied me a moment. You ever think about your future, Tom? I mean, beyond firefighting? Not really, I said honestly. Didn't have time for dreams growing up. Always felt like I was just surviving the day. He nodded slowly. I did a little digging. Hope you don't mind. I raised an eyebrow, but he continued. You've been working since you were 14. Dropped out to support your family. Then put yourself through firefighter training with no help. That's grit. And then, despite everything, you walked into a collapsing building for my daughter. He leaned forward. I don't want that to be the end of your story. I sat up straighter. What are you saying? I'm saying, he said, I want to make an offer. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it and my breath caught. It was a grant proposal. A trust. A startup fund. My name was on it. $2 million. To do what? I asked, stunned. Whatever you want, he said simply. Build something. Start something. You decide. But it comes with mentorship. Access to my network. You saved my daughter's life, Tom. Now I want to help build yours. I couldn't speak. The numbers on the page didn't feel real. But the weight of it, what it meant, that landed hard. Why me? I whispered. He didn't hesitate. Because no one ever gave you a chance. And you still became the kind of man who runs toward fire. I left that office in a daze. The folder in my hand. My heartbeat thundering in my chest. And then, later that night, it happened. A voicemail. From my dad. Slurred. Emotional. Tom, hey. We heard about the money. That man, Ellison or whoever, he's giving you some kind of deal, right? We're proud of you, son. Just, let's talk, okay? I replayed the message twice. Not because I missed him. But because I finally understood. The moment I had something they wanted. I became visible. And for the first time in my life. I wasn't just the forgotten son. I was the one with the power. And I was about to use it. I stood on the porch of Grandma June's house that evening, staring out across the frozen Montana fields. Her wind chimes tinkled softly behind me, and I could hear the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Inside my coat pocket was the folder, the one with the $2 million offer that could rewrite everything. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mom. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Let's do a family dinner soon. Chase really wants to see you. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat on the porch swing, watching the horizon go dark. For the first time in my life, they wanted me. But not for who I was. Not for my heart. Not for my sacrifice. They wanted me because I had power now. Because money talks, and suddenly, their idiot son spoke the loudest. But I wasn't going to shout. I was going to whisper. And they'd hear it like thunder. The next morning, I called Mark Ellison. I want to accept your offer, I told him. He didn't ask for details. He simply said, my assistant will send over the paperwork. Let me know when you're ready to meet the first advisors. But I did know what I wanted to do. It came to me while walking through a quiet street downtown, past an old lot that used to be a feed store. It was abandoned now, just gravel and broken windows. That's where I decided to build the Ember Center. Named after the fire. After the pain. And what comes after pain, warmth. It would be a support center for first responders, especially ones like me, who had nowhere to go after the uniform came off. Free counseling. Financial help for injured workers. Mentorship programs. Scholarships for kids of fallen firefighters. And at the heart of it, a small wing named after Grandma June. Because she was the only one who ever saw my fire before anyone else did. While construction plans were being drawn up, I quietly made moves. I transferred the $2 million into a protected holding account under a trust. That way, no one, not even blood, could touch it without my say-so. I also hired a lawyer. A brilliant, no-nonsense woman named Bria Singh. She used to be a litigator in New York before moving to Bozeman to raise her kids. I told her everything. From the hospital betrayal to the sudden wave of love bombing after the news broke. She nodded slowly and said, "You don't want to fight them. You want to teach them." Exactly. Because fighting meant I still cared. Teaching. That was something else entirely. A week later, Chase texted me. "Bro. I heard you're working with the Ellisons now. That's huge. Let's link up, me, you, and the fam. We're all so pumped." I didn't reply. Instead, I posted one thing to my private Facebook, which I hadn't touched in over a year. A photo of me standing in front of the future Ember Center site. The caption. "When you're built from fire, no one can burn you again. Coming 2025. The next day, my mom called. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about the center. She launched right into it. Chase was laid off again. It's been hard, you know. And we've been thinking, maybe you could set something aside for the family. You know, just while you're doing all this big stuff. I waited a beat. Then I said, sure. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Really? Yeah, I said, calmly. I'll do something for Chase. Something unforgettable. Over the next few days, I put the final piece in place. I rented out the ballroom at Bozeman's nicest hotel, the kind of place my parents had never been inside, unless they were cleaning it. I sent out formal invitations. One to my family. One to every local firefighter and EMT. One to the mayor's office. And one to Mark Ellison's executive team. I made it seem like a soft launch celebration for the Ember Center. But it was more than that. It was the fuse. And I was ready to light it. The ballroom glittered like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers. Polished floors. Rows of white-clothed tables lined with engraved name cards. Floral arrangements that smelled like spring in a town still frozen in snow. I stood near the entrance in a dark gray suit, tailored, my first real suit, watching the room fill with Bozeman's best. First responders, city officials, business leaders. Everyone who mattered was here. And then, just past 7, they arrived. My parents. My mother's heels clicked nervously as she scanned the room. My father wore a faded blazer I'd seen him wear to funerals. Chase walked in last, cocky smirk in place, tie undone, like he'd been invited to collect a trophy. I smiled and greeted them with a handshake. No hug. Glad you could make it, I said evenly. My mother's eyes sparkled, but not with pride, with expectation. This is, wow, Tom. This is really something. Dad grunted a rare, you did good, son. And Chase? He clapped me on the back. Hey bro, can't wait to see what you're gonna announce. Must be something big, huh? I nodded. Bigger than you think. They took their seats at the front table. Reserved. With their names printed in gold ink. But they weren't the guests of honor. That belonged to someone else. At 7:30, I took the stage. The room fell quiet. I looked out at the sea of faces, some smiling, some skeptical, some deeply curious. I cleared my throat, steadying my voice. Most of you know me as the guy who pulled a girl out of a fire, I began. But that's not the story I'm here to tell tonight. I glanced at the front table, my family watching, caught off guard. I want to tell you a different story. One that starts not with a blaze, but with silence. I told them about growing up invisible. About being the son who worked 2 jobs while his brother got a car. About lying in a hospital bed with burned skin, waiting for a family who never came. But here's the thing, I said, my voice rising. When you've been forged in fire, you stop needing the people who threw you into it. A few people gasped. My parents stiffened. Chase shifted in his seat. I continued. Tonight, we're launching the Ember Center. A place for every firefighter, EMT, and responder who gave everything and got nothing back. A place for the invisible to be seen. Applause rose, slow at first, then thunderous. But I wasn't done. I held up a check. This, I said, is a $50,000 donation, in someone else's name. The room hushed again. I turned toward my family. Everyone turned with me. Chase Grayson, I said, this check will be donated in your name, to a program for troubled youth who squander second chances. Laughter rippled, confused at first, then sharp. Chase's face flushed red. Tom, what the hell? I want the town to remember, I said calmly, that even the golden boy can become a cautionary tale. I locked eyes with my parents. And to my mom and dad, who once said I was reckless and foolish for risking my life. I say thank you. They looked confused, almost hopeful. I finished with a smile. Because without your neglect, I wouldn't have built this fire in me. And tonight, it's burning brighter than ever. The room stood. Applauding. Cheering. Whistling. My family sat frozen, pale and silent under the glow of chandeliers. I stepped off the stage and walked straight past them. I didn't look back. Because this wasn't their story anymore. It was mine. The next morning, the headlines did the rest of the work. Local heroes blaze of truth, firefighter dedicates $2 million center, exposes family at gala. Poetic payback, Bozeman's forgotten son reclaims his name. I didn't say a word online. Didn't post. Didn't gloat. I just sat on the porch of my new house, modest but mine, sipping black coffee while Grandma June flipped through the paper. She looked up and smiled over her glasses. "You lit 'em up, Tommy." I smirked. I didn't even raise my voice. That afternoon, my phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. "Chase." "What the hell was that?" he hissed. "You humiliated us. I lost a job offer this morning. Some real estate guy said he saw the video." "Oh, you mean the video you insisted on tagging me in before the gala?" I asked, calm as ever. "You think you're better than us now?" he snapped. "No," I said. "I've always been better. You're just now realizing it." Click. Then came the emails. My mom's was long and dramatic. "You've always misunderstood us. You took things too personally. Families argue, that's normal." My dad's was one line. "You've disgraced your name." I hit archive on both. But what I didn't expect, was what arrived by certified mail 3 days later. A legal notice. From my father. I opened the envelope slowly, my hand steady. Inside was a printed letter from a family lawyer in Billings. They were threatening to sue me for slander, reputational harm, and emotional distress. I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because after all this time, after ignoring me, mocking me, using me, they still didn't get it. They thought this was about money. They thought it was about shame. But what they didn't know, is that I'd already taken the final step. You see, they hadn't just abandoned me. They had abandoned Grandma June, too. When she broke her hip 2 years ago, I was the only one who visited her in the hospital. When her heater broke that Christmas, they didn't answer her calls. And when she updated her will, she left everything to me. Land. Assets. An untouched inheritance from her late husband, our granddad, who'd wisely bought up land near the university that had since tripled in value. Nearly $1.4 million in property and cash. They had no idea. But they were about to. That weekend, I met with my lawyer Bria at her office. She'd already reviewed their lawsuit. "It's laughable," she said, sipping her tea. "Empty threats. But if you want to make a move, this might be your moment." "I do," I said. "Let's respond. Publicly." She raised an eyebrow. "You want to go on record?" "Yep. Let them chase the fire this time." 2 days later, I posted a letter on the Ember Center's website. It was titled, "The Fire That Made Me." In it, I thanked the Ellison family. The first responders of Bozeman. My team. Then I told the real story. Of neglect. Of betrayal. Of waking up in a hospital bed and realizing my family wouldn't show up, not unless they smelled money. I didn't use names. I didn't have to. Everyone already knew. And at the end, I wrote this. To the people who called me reckless, a disappointment, an idiot. I forgive you. But don't mistake that for an invitation. The doors you closed are now locked from the inside. And I've built a new home, one where love isn't conditional. The letter went viral locally. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me with support. Even Emma Ellison, the girl I'd saved, commented. The world needs more people like you, Tom. I wouldn't be here without you. That same night, Bria called. The estate transfer is finalized, she said. You now own the Grayson property outright. And by the way, your father filed a petition to block the will. And? She grinned. Denied. Grandma made it ironclad. The judge even called it a model of clear intent. I sat there in silence, staring out my window at the Montana plains. Not smiling. Not crying. Just breathing. Free. I didn't throw a victory party. Didn't post another triumphant letter. Didn't broadcast my next move. That wasn't the point. What I did instead was simple. I called the construction team to begin renovations on the old Grayson property, my childhood home. But not to live in it. I had other plans. You see, for years, that house had been a symbol of pain. A place where love had conditions. Where silence was punishment. Where praise belonged to my brother and I was just the scaffolding holding the family up. I decided to turn it into something new. A recovery home for injured firefighters and first responders. I called it June House. In the foyer, I had a plaque installed. To all those who gave everything and received nothing, this home sees you. My parents tried one last time. They showed up. I was walking the property when I saw their car parked outside the gate. My father stood stiff, arms crossed. My mother wore oversized sunglasses, her lips pursed like she'd bitten a lemon. I didn't open the gate. You've made your point, my father said. You think you're better than us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I don't think I'm better. I just know I'm not yours to control anymore. My mother's voice cracked. What happened to you? I smiled faintly. I walked through fire. And then I turned and walked away. I didn't hear them call after me. Because I didn't care if they did. Weeks later, June House opened. We hosted a small ceremony. No media. No politics. Just a few firefighters, a therapist, and one man in a wheelchair who cried when we gave him keys. Grandma June stood beside me, wearing her favorite blue sweater. She whispered, "You did it, Tommy. You turned ashes into something beautiful." I squeezed her hand. Because you never let me burn out. In the quiet moments I still think about Chase. I heard he tried to move to Idaho, started a job at a warehouse, then quit 2 weeks later. He sent me a text last month. I was a jerk. I get it now. You were always the strong one. I replied, simply. Then be strong now. As for me, I still fight fires. But not just with hoses or helmets. I fight the ones people can't see, the burn of being unseen, unheard, unloved. And I make sure others never feel the way I once did. Because there's something powerful about rising from the same fire that tried to destroy you. Not just surviving, but becoming the spark someone else needs. Final words from Twisted Truths. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.